What is, hands down, the scariest movie you have ever seen? I watched Salem's Lot when I was 12 or 13, and it terrified me. I was expecting scratches on the window every night for weeks after. Oh crap, that and the red eyes outside the window in Amityville Horror? I stayed far away from windows as a kid. For sheer fear, the lights out short. Only time I had to check I hadn't peed a little at a jump scare. The build-up for dread was just, yes. Watched that not long ago, and that smile at the end is burned in my brain. I don't know if it quite fits into the horror category, but We Need to Talk About Kevin was one of the bleakest, most unsettling movies I've ever seen. I watched that on a whim one day and I felt bad for the mom. The town wouldn't let her be happy at all. See, I don't actually love a lot of horror movies, but I do like bleak. I might need to look this up and get my SAD on. Grave Encounters was pretty dang horrifying, but I'd say the movie that instilled the most terror in me was A Dark Song. Yum, love me a good occult horror. I'll have to give that one a watch. I would say that the Spanish found-footage zombie film Wreck scared the heck out of me. I could handle the zombies themselves, but the Portuguese girl trapped in that abandoned apartment? Ugh. Fire in the Sky, 1993. It has the scariest alien abduction scene I've ever seen, and it really fricked me up as a child. Nothing beats the pure, unrelenting horror of the original Alien. That final 15 minutes of Ripley frantically running like a bat out of heck, trying desperately to escape the living nightmare that is the Big Chap. Then the brilliant fourth act twist followed by a pure shot of adrenaline and catharsis as Ripley and we, the audience, get to breathe our first sigh of relief since his ordeal began. Truly a masterclass in sci-fi horror. And they understood something that keeps that movie timeless. The more of the creature you show, the less of an impact it will have. I think you only see the alien in its entirety once in the original cut. Finally, a movie I've heard of and that I really love. Granted, back in the day, I think they avoided showing the monsters in movies like that too much because they looked too fake if you saw them much. Still, I think because of that, they stumbled upon something that even modern movies with amazing effects could learn from. Show less. Horror is found in the unknown. Sounds a little ridiculous, but The Descent still freaks me out, and I've seen it more times than I can remember. It's like knowing what happens makes the anticipation unbearable. The Descent for me as well. If you're a fan of horror, most movies won't really scare you. The Descent truly unnerved me and made me feel super uncomfortable for a week. Martyrs ruined me. I didn't know what to expect going in, and as soon as you think you have a feel for the plot, the movie takes the darkest turn imaginable. Definitely one of the more disturbing ones for me, but I don't know about scary. It was more of an endurance test in the last act. Not gonna lie, even as a lifelong fan of horror, Zelda in the original Pet Sematary is freaking terrifying. Not so much the whole movie, just her. I was dying to see Pet Sematary in the theaters when it was released. 4th grade, I think. My mom said if I read the book, she would take me to see it. I had to close my eyes whenever Zelda appeared on screen. And the voice? Rachel! No! Hush is such a creepy movie. Flanagan always leaves me with that lingering creeped out feeling for the rest of the night. House scared me as a kid. The scene when the wife bends down to pick up the bullet that fell off the table and she pops up as a big pink monster with big teeth and she does this high-pitched squeal/laugh scared the heck out of me. That was like 25 years ago and I still haven't forgotten that scene, LOL. I was terrified of House as a kid. I showed it to a friend a few years ago, prepped him for a dark and scary movie, but it was a super silly, almost campy horror flick. I was so surprised. Yeah, House scared me a lot too. I mean, the way he talked down to people and treated his employees, plus I was always so worried he would say it was lupus. So scary. The one that immediately came to mind was The Ruins. Things crawling under the skin apparently gives me the heebie-jeebies. Oh, and the original Candyman. What is crazy is I recently rewatched it. It wasn't great or scary. I also blame my irrational fear of dolls and puppets on the Puppet Master. Even scary as how old I feel now that I looked up when these movies came out. Dang, I'm old. ETA, The Autopsy of Jane Doe was pretty scary, but more for what it didn't show. The way it slow builds is very good in my opinion. Starts out relatively docile and then just keeps building your anxiety. Nothing scared me the way the Blair Witch Project did when I saw it at the cinema in high school. There hadn't really been anything like it at the time, and the marketing campaign was brilliant. The internet wasn't quite what it was today back then, so it was harder to find information about it. I also had friends who laughed the whole way through. It's one of those films that either totally grabs you or it doesn't. Funny Games, both the original and remake, chill me to my core. It definitely isn't much of a jump scare gore-fest kind of movie, but it has its own way of affecting the viewer. There is no soundtrack/music in the movie except for the title screen. This is the best movie that I never ever want to watch again. I saw the remake. The living room scene with the unbearably long and slow tracking shot broke me. Naomi Watts was stellar and became one of my favorite actresses right then and there. The last time I genuinely felt scared was Sinister in 2012. Those home films were so creepy, and the Bagul demon was just so creepy and well designed. The director was also smart to have him appear very minimally and scarcely throughout the film. But is it the scariest movie I've ever seen? No. Bro, the lawnmower. Die Präsenz. It's a German found footage movie, and whilst it's a bit of a slow mover, there were a few scenes that honestly scared the life out of me. Also, look into the old BBC documentary Ghostwatch. Although it's a little dated and maybe not as effective if you don't live in the UK, it relies strongly on a very relatable UK house as a backdrop. Yes, I saw Ghostwatch when it first came out. I think I was 14 and watching it with my boyfriend of the time. Scared the crap out of me, especially with the different sightings of pipes the ghost threw out. I'm kind of in the same boat where I've seen so much and I'm into horror movies so much, they don't really scare me like when I was younger. However, two that come to mind when asked this is The Ritual, about some British friends being lost in the Swedish woods. The Autopsy of Jane Doe, about a father-son coroner's office that face unexpected challenges. If you enjoy The Ritual, I definitely recommend the novel it's based on. Freaked me the heck out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre wins for me. Can't believe it was made so long ago and shows basically no gore. A more recent one is Wolf Creek. Really blew me away when I first watched it. Just don't watch the sequel if you're looking for horror. See, I've never heard of Wolf Creek and you didn't sell me on it, but now I am really curious about the sequel and why you would say that. You've gone and goofed up, OP. Or was this your plan all along? I hate to admit it, but I'm rarely scared or even pushed to feeling fear when watching horror films, but the original Blair Witch Project got the most out of me. I wasn't jumping all over the place or screaming, it's the fear it installed inside me, how simple and almost real it looked. I guess it's a mix of creepiness and overall feeling of dread. The end scene with the dude standing in the corner left me feeling the most unsettled I had ever felt up to that point. Jacob's Ladder. Not sure why, but it got under my skin like no other movie. The other scariest were movies that were scary because I was young and impressionable, like Poltergeist, The Exorcist, or some scenes from Beastmaster. As an adolescent, The Sixth Sense. As an adult, The Witch worked its way into my psyche way too easily. Was always watching my woods for a couple days during the night. The Witch is so creepy. Goats are kind of unnerving on their own, those rectangular pupils. I don't know if I would call it scary, but really unnerving and made me super uncomfortable for the majority of the film, Audition. Also, Come and See Me messed me up pretty bad the first time I watched it, but once again, not sure I would consider it scary or even really horror, just incredibly visceral. Come and See Me. The fires and the contrast in the end scenes burnt into my psyche, and it is a very powerful movie. I don't think it's inherently scary, but I watched Tusk without knowing anything about it, and I get really anxious whenever I think about it. It was so fricked up and disturbing to me. I hate that movie. Laugh my butt off. That movie is so over-the-top goofy, and the walrus suit looks so fake, but goddamn did it twist me up the first time I saw it. It's one of those movies I can't believe even got made. Hereditary is all kinds of fricked up. There's also this Austrian horror/thriller that comes to mind called Goodnight Mommy. It's essentially about two twins whose mother gets facial reconstructive surgery, so her face is all bandaged up, and the kids start to question if the person behind the bandages is actually their mom. Super fricked, would highly recommend. Goodnight Mommy was utterly horrifying and totally fantastic. Just wow. I think I was so shook by that one scene in Hereditary I missed a lot of the later stuff. Need to watch it again with a stronger spirit. I've never heard of Goodnight Mommy before, but honestly, that description sounds really interesting. I might have to see if that's something my partner is interested in, or if I'll have to watch it alone in my office, with the lights on and my dogs nearby to protect me. As a teenager, it'd have to be either Sinister 1 or Shudder. Although the one that scared me the most as a child was The Ring, when Samara crawls out of the TV. Okay, so that actually reminds me. The Ring scared the crap out of me as a teen, and some friends convinced me to go watch The Ring 2 in theaters with them. I was scared until the scene where Samara crawls up the well after the main character. I was full on cackling in the theater because she looked like a goofy Spider-Man contortionist the way she moved. Seriously, go watch it. It's hilarious. Horror movie makers, I'll keep saying it. Show less. As above, so below, but because I watched in a theater by myself. There was only one other person there sitting rows away, and the sound design of that movie is pretty spectacular. That sounds like a perfect environment for that movie. As a kid, Darkness Falls. As a teen, Dead Silence. As an almost adult, Insidious. These days, though, I haven't really found anything scary. My love for horror is still here, but nothing is really scary like when I was younger. Horrific, like Hereditary? Definitely. What Lies Beneath. It's a masterpiece that no one seems to care about anymore, but was all anyone was talking about the week it came out. It's basically an opposite Rear Window by Hitchcock. Danger is inside the house when she's looking out. Alien. In the second grade, my best friend and I were going through his dad's VHS tapes and decided to watch it. I had nightmares for years. The xenomorph makes a rare appearance in my dreams to this day. As dumb as it sounds, Gremlins did this to me. Watched it when I was 5 and it effed me up nightmare-wise. I can still see them in my head vividly, then pounding on the wall because I couldn't find the doorknob in the dark to get to my parents. Heck House LLC. Paranormal stuff gets to me, and I have a soft spot for found footage, so it was a great combo to get under my skin. I found the first hour or so very scary, but for some reason the climax/third act didn't do it for me at all. I was pretty disturbed after all that buildup, but in hindsight I appreciate the film for the dread it was able to pull off in the first hour alone. Sounds dumb, but watching Insidious for the first time with my friends when we were in 5th grade was terrifying. We had a code word called Kill Pause that we'd yell when it got too spooky, and whoever said it last would have to run to the remote on the other side of the room to pause it. It ramped up the suspense 10 times for some reason, LOL. Good times. Okay, I'm a horror movie baby most of the time, but I don't get folks being scared of Insidious. My friends and I laughed our way through that movie. Maybe that particular kind of horror just doesn't get to me, but I've watched that movie a few times just for the laughs. Texas Chainsaw. As a youngling on a heavily pirated VHS. Never felt fear like that from a film since. Recently, though, I found Suspiria 2018 unsettling. The last about 5 minutes or so of the movie feel like an actual nightmare. I'm surprised no one has mentioned The Taking of Deborah Logan yet. It is the creepiest one that I've seen recently. Didn't ruin my life or anything like some others have, Hereditary mainly, but it is freaking scary and I'm not sure when I would have ever watched it again, to be honest. And I've rewatched basically all the other movies that have scared me the most multiple times. My grandmother had Alzheimer's before she passed away, and holy frick, some of the crap in Deborah Logan chilled me to the bones as a 17-year-old when I first saw it. So reminiscent of her, the walking around in the middle of the night, the unsettling, distant look on her face. Ugh, just thinking about it is enough to give me chills. Gunjam, most likely. Didn't expect too much going into it, but it had some incredibly effective scares that were pretty original. It's just downright creepy. While I don't know if it's the scariest, The Visit was a really great movie at building tension and keeping me guessing at what was actually happening. The scene under the house was also pretty intense. Something about the Poughkeepsie tapes always sets me off, but I also caught a British film called Exhibit A the other day that really unsettled me, probably my anxiety. The Poughkeepsie tapes is one of a few horror films that I can't finish all the way through. I understand in horror more often than not the bad guys win or somehow get their way in the end. But seriously, frick that guy. I haven't finished it, but I just know the setup at the end, so I just refuse to finish it. It really doesn't scare me as much as it makes me mad. Room 1408 is one of the first horror psychological movies I've ever seen in my life, and I recently watched it again with a friend to remind me clearly the story, and all I could say is that it's an incredibly good movie. I recommend it a lot. You should read the book, even better scare factor. Poltergeist and Night of the Living Dead, but I was also very young when I saw them. I have not been able to find anything that has frightened me like that as an adult. It Follows. The whole concept that this thing is following you at a walking pace no matter where you go is so terrifying. The dread. It's not totally scary, but just the dread, and loved how you would always see someone slowly walking in the background, but not sure if it's the thing or not. It Follows is actually one of my personal favorites for those very reasons. There are a lot of subtle things that movie does that creep me out, but I also just really appreciate on a filmmaking level. Although some might call it a thriller, I've never been more anxious or frightened by a movie than Green Room, for two simple reasons. One, neo-Nazis are real, and everything that happened in the movie is very possible to happen in real life. No ghosts or ghouls, just real people being terrifying. Two, every decision that is made is the best decision possible. It might not be a great decision overall, but it's the best decision out of what is available to the characters. None of this bullcrap horror movie decision-making, oh, maybe I'll go back inside the house where the killer is. I highly recommend this movie. I laughed a lot during my first watching of Hereditary. No, I wasn't finding anything funny. The family drama messed with some stuff deep inside. I just had a weird reaction and something in my brain sort of broke. I was terrified the entire time. That movie is effed up. I love it. A lot of my friends come to me for horror recommendations and I tell them Hereditary. I've watched this once and haven't gone back to it. I think it was because I watched it a few weeks before my son was born, and the thought of losing him has affected me since. Toni Collette's I Just Want to Die has me tearing up just thinking about it. The scariest I've seen is the 2007 French film Inside. Watch it alone, late at night, in the dark, loud, with headphones. Let me know if you get to it. All dogs go to heaven, for real. Putting aside my existential panic at age 4, the Blair Witch Project. What can I say? E.T. had me shaking in a clammy sweat at 5. The War Zone, directed by Tim Roth. Hidden abuse within an otherwise normal family scared me more than any creature or boogeyman. I love horror movies, but the scariest movie I've ever seen is a documentary called The Nightmare about sleep paralysis. Check it out. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.